Recording, and Stephanie, you can take it away.
Hi, thank you. Appreciate it, Dee. I am Stephanie Todd, and I'm the public affairs specialist for the Baltimore metro area for Social Security Administration. I've been with the agency going on 16 years next month, and my first about 13 years were spent as a claims specialist. I worked in the Glen Burnie, Maryland office for about 10 years. I started in upstate New York. So I have a lot of hands-on experience to share with you. And this presentation is for you professionally as well as you personally, because you're people too, and you matter. And knowing how to sort of answer questions, triage problems, and knowing about your own benefits is really important. So I just want to sort of preface the presentation with that. So I hope you take away sort of information about both sides of the coin. And definitely save your questions to the end because this presentation sort of builds upon itself and we start unpacking more and more about Social Security as we go along. The first slide up here, if you have a My Social Security account, raise your hand. I'm just curious, who among us has a My Social Security account? Mm-mm-mm. Cool. All right. I see. Yay. I see hands raised, which is great. And I will tell you, in the time that I've been in public affairs, I went from just a few scared hands in the group to over half, and a good number of people wanting to join our digital revolution for Social Security. So, Dee, you can go to the next slide. So I'll be integrating more about our online services as we go. So this is a partnership. I'm here, to help you, like I said, help you and help you help your clients. Um, so that way you can work on, um, sorry, there we go, knowing your way around Social Security benefits for your own reference and to help them because I understand that you guys have almost as many uh, clients in common with us as we can think of. So the next slide is just a disclaimer to let you know that one of the constant things in government is change. So if you look back at this presentation, um, I don't think I'm not sure if it's advancing in my view, D.
I needed to switch the presenter view, Stephanie. We're still on the second slide, Social Security with you through life's journey.
Yeah, is it possible to go the next?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So there's our little disclaimer. Just make sure you check ssa.gov if you have any questions about numbers, rates, figures, since we're coming up on the end of the fiscal year or the beginning of the new fiscal year, depending on which direction you're looking. This is when a lot of stuff changes. So you can go to the next slide, which is just to give you some statistics about Social Security beneficiaries. So as of May 2026, we have 68.3 million people receiving Social Security benefits. Those are our entitlement programs like retirement, survivors, disability. And then we have another program that Social Security administers, SSI. SSI is Supplemental Security Income, and it's a needs-based program. And then we have 2.5 million people who flip-flop between both programs and they receive benefits from both. So one day you'll be one of those people. But while we're serving those people that are there now, um, let's start unpacking the programs. So the next slide starts off when you get to like your working age. And you might, in first paychecks, if you remember a ways back, start seeing OASDI or FICA or Social Security being taken out of your paycheck. And that, I feel like that's kind of a rude awakening for getting your first jobs. You go, who is this and why are they taking my money? So it's a payroll tax. It's an automatic deduction that you share with your employer, and it's 15.3%. So your employer is responsible for 7.65%, and you're responsible for the other 7.65. And 6.2% of the 7.65 goes to Social Security's trust funds, which is retirement, survivors, disability, and Medicare programs. 1.45% goes to Medicare. So that is how you contribute to the people who are receiving benefits, or you contributing to the trust funds that run Social Security. So that's one function of your earnings. So we have about 93% of folks in the United States that are paying FICA taxes, and there is a small percentage of people who work under different type of programs that they don't pay FICA tax on their earnings, but they perhaps won't be able to collect Social Security. So you pay in, you able to get benefits if you pay in enough. So the next slide. So that's our contributions. Now we're going to talk about how your earnings are taken into account to figure out your Social Security benefits. So your current pennies that are going in to pay to FICA tax, those benefits, those pennies are paying out to folks who are getting benefits now. So, and then the trust funds are the thing that we want to preserve for the longevity of the program. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So how do you become eligible for retirement benefits? And I start off with the retirement benefits because it's one of the easier things to talk about. So one way that your earnings go into your retirement benefits is you earn quarters of credit. And this is about your whole earnings, not those percentages. That's a payroll tax. So all of the earnings that you have, your gross earned income, you earn quarters of credit. Their quarters of credit obviously would tell you that the max you can earn in a year is 4. In 2026, a quarter of credit is $1,890 gross earned income. And if you earn at least $7,560 gross earned income, you get your 4 quarters of credit for the year. So I think I might have mentioned, but if I didn't, you can only get 4 quarters in a year. So it takes about 10 years to get your full 40 quarters of credit. So you contribute to Social Security by paying your taxes. You contribute to your Social Security by the earnings that you have. You get your 40 quarters of credit, and we don't care when they occurred. So if, let's say that perhaps often ladies, if we took some time off and we were raising kids, and you weren't working at that period of time, we don't care when that those years don't have any earnings there. We just care that you got your 40 quarters, and it doesn't matter where they occurred. Okay. So the next slide helps us to unpack a little more about our online services. And as you know, we are in good company with people with Social Security, my Social Security accounts. And so the way that we know if we're paying in and we're getting our quarters and we're getting proof of our earnings is to use a great feature of your My Social Security account. So how you can figure out whether, what your earnings are doing for you in the future, you can go to the to the next slide, and you, through your My Social Security account, can view your Social Security statement. And this might, if you haven't looked at it online lately, this might look a little familiar from a few years back. And then you're probably thinking to yourself, gee, I haven't seen one of those in a while. We stopped sending them out unless they're specifically requested. Um, so we send out about 22,000 of those. We also sent out about 10.3 million that were mailed to people. That is like a little nudge to say, hey, we've got this online stuff. You're coming up on benefit age, critical ages. We want you to know about your benefits. So there's two important, this is all important, but there's two main features of your benefit statement that I want you to look at. On the right side page, you see a chart, the three columns. That is where we show you what earnings that you have on file. Because as you'll see in a second, when we go back into calculation of benefits, that's how we figure out how much to pay you in benefits. So the math goes in with those earnings. And then on the left page, in the right column, the navy blue chart that's laying on its side, that tells you about your benefits at every year that you're eligible to take your benefits. So it shows you how much your benefits would be between 62 and age 70. And we'll break down even further when to take benefits. So that's kind of the whole journey. So we want you to see what's going in and what's coming out. So the next slide is, in addition to this personalized Social Security statement, we're going to show you a fact sheet. This is a fact sheet that is specifically for our friends who are 49 to 60. So for people that are over 60 and two categories of younger folks, we have different fact sheets that help you to kind of get started, get your brain moving in terms of understanding what is important to consider at that time of your life. So 49 to 60, we're talking about benefits for retirement, possible survivors benefits, benefits for anybody else in the household, looking at Medicare, so looking forward to retirement. And then that is sort of a good, strong foundation for you to start understanding what is on that Social Security statement and why it matters to you. So the next slide. So as you can see, those are important. Definitely go online and check those out. Um, so hopping back into learning more about your Social Security benefit. So we know how we get our earnings, where our earnings go. They go to your earnings record. And then how we figure out what to pay you. That's an important thing that people want to know. We see the chart, we see the graph, what's in between. So there's three main steps, and your benefits are based on your earnings. Your benefits are based on your earnings, not your spouse's, not your brother's, yours. And this also leads to one hot topic in fraud considerations. So you want to make sure to be looking at your earnings record to make sure all of your earnings are there and are correct. If you see any big spikes, any big, well, zeros, those are times where we want to go, wait a minute, what was happening then? Because we're an agency that's run by humans, and sometimes we make mistakes, but I will say that we are pretty good at getting this information correct. For the million bajillion people that are, of age to receive information about their earnings record. So we're pretty good at it, but just double check and make sure. So the first step is we look for your wages and we index them. So we apply today's dollar values, inflation, consumer price index, and all that wild stuff. We apply that number to them. So what you earned in 1993 is going to be rated at how many dollars is that worth today, not 1993 dollars, but 2026 dollars, or $1993 through a 2026 lens. So we index our earnings, so we figure out what those are worth. The second step that we take for the list of your earnings is to find the average of your highest 35 years of indexed earnings, not your high three, not your high five, your highest 35. And we do some mathematical gymnastics to come up with an average index monthly earnings figure. So now you see how those numbers go in. And the next slide tells us about the calculations for benefits. Now, when the benefit rates change, and if there in the future is to be any big changes in the benefit rates payable, this is the where that stuff is going to happen. So we do, as I mentioned, another little bit of mathematical gymnastics. And from the average index monthly earnings, we come up with a base benefit amount. The $3,263, if the average monthly earnings are $8,000, you can see how that translates from this is what your income was, and this is what your benefit would be. And we're talking about that benefit at something called full retirement age, which again, we'll get there in a second. So, about, how you contribute to Social Security benefits, how your earnings get recorded and used for calculating your benefit. And then the next slide gets into the meat of decisions. So this is a question that I am asked constantly, out in the wild, talking to, friends, family members, when I'm out doing public affairs stuff. When is the right age to take your Social Security benefit? And I think people are kind of wringing their hands going, I wonder if there's no, there's no one magic answer, folks. There are a set of choices that we need to evaluate. And I am very careful to say that because there is no one magic answer, um, I hate to call something, taking it early is bad or waiting is good, really good. Your decisions are based on your circumstances. So the important thing to know is why you're choosing them, and let's start to unpack the why. So this chart probably looks a lot like the chart that was on your My Social Security statement. In fact, it is pretty much that, but it's going this way instead of this way. So this again gives you the whole range of choices at milestones when you turn 62, 63, 4, 5, blah, 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 up to age 70. You can choose, therefore, any month in between to take your benefits. Okay. So right now, folks who are born after 1960, okay, 1960 and after, your full retirement age is 67. We'll look at that in a second, but 67 is your full retirement age. So I point out that column that says $2,000. So this chart is showing us that at full retirement age, $2,000 would be your full benefit. Okay, your 100% is where you are there. If you take your benefits early, which again is a choice, not the right choice for everybody, but the right choice for some people, you'll look left to the column for age 62, and you'll see that there's a reduction. And there, if you start creeping back to the right to age 67, you'll see that the benefit rate goes up, up, up until we reach 2000. And then, so at 62, if you collect your benefit, then your benefit would be reduced by 30%. So we have 70% at 62. That's what you're collecting. 67 is 100%. And then we have increases at age 67 68, 69, and 70. And those increases are 8% per year. And so that's when we go above our 100%. So that 0 point is at age 67, $2,000. So you see the whole journey, you see how benefits change over time. And the next slide helps us to discuss um, the full retirement age issue and shows you that it would be a 2000, or I'm sorry, a 30% reduction at 67, the very bottom row. For folks that are with us, if you were born before 1960, this is also to show you when your full retirement age is, or I guarantee you're probably working with people who were born before 1960, and this is when their full retirement age occurred. So for a good part of my career, 66 was like the magic number, and we have crept up to 67 being the full retirement age. And if you were to extend that chart further back, 65 used to be full retirement age, but it started changing for a few different reasons. And I also want to mention that at 62, when you turn 62, okay, and if today is your birthday, congratulations, happy birthday officially from Social Security. The reason I use today as an example is if you are 62 today, your first month of eligibility for Social Security benefits is actually going to be September, because the rule is at 62, when you begin your potential eligibility, you have to be 62 throughout the entire month. So if your birthday is today, you have the rest of the month being 62, but September is the month that you're 62 every single day. September benefits would be paid in October because we pay our benefits a month behind. And then you only have to do that throughout the month thing at early retirement. So if you're filing for benefits at 67, if today is your 67th birthday, you take your benefits at 67, you're 100%. You take your benefits effective with August. So we only have that funny thing to start off, okay? Also, a little bit more extending knowledge about benefits. So if you take if your birthday falls in the first 10 days of the month, your payment date, so there's three of them for retirement. So you probably are thinking, wait, hold on, everybody gets their benefits on the third. Not quite. Lots of disability beneficiaries get benefits paid on the third of the month. A lot of our old timers, before we divided up the payment times, get benefits on the third. So it just kind of comes down to what type of benefits you receive. Otherwise, your benefits are paid for the people born in the first 10 days of the month. You get your benefits on the second Wednesday of the month. For people born the 11th through the 21st, the 20th, your benefits are paid on the third Wednesday of the month. And then our fourth Wednesday of the month is when our late in the month birthday friends get their payment. So if you were born 21st through the 30th or 31st, you get your benefits on the fourth Wednesday of the month for. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So taking a reduction in benefits, if you file early, then your benefits are reduced a small percentage for each month further back till age 62. We know 62 is the magic beginning age for everybody with the whole throughout the month thing. 67 or whatever your full retirement age is our middle point. And then it's 8% per year gain for the delayed retirement credits, which is between full retirement age and 70. Okay, let's move on to another consideration. So now we know about benefits are reduced for our age. It's important also to know that if somebody takes retirement benefits early, so at anywhere between 62 and their full retirement age, there is an earnings limit to consider. So if you're under full retirement age in 2026 and you're taking your Social Security benefits, the earnings limit is $24,480 gross earned income. And for every $2 you go over, $1 of benefits is withheld. So there is kind of a penalty for that. But the earnings limit, it depends on what people are doing, whether or not they view that as like, hey, that's not bad, or holy cow, that's really low. So it depends on sort of where you sit among that information. But so taking benefits early, you have your reduction because of taking benefits early. You have the earnings limit to consider. um, the other part of the more extended to the earnings limit, every year that you're under full retirement age and you're getting benefits, you have a new earnings limit that begins every January. So the earnings limit may go up for 2027. We don't know yet, but it has gone up. I want to say the earnings limit way back in 2010 when I started with Social Security was like 14,000 some, just to give you sort of a sense of scale of how things have changed. And the year you turn full retirement age, so for me, my birthday's in June, using myself as an example, between January and May are the months before I turn full retirement age. The earnings limit goes way up. Okay. It's 65,160 for me, or, based on whenever your birthday is, the months before you turn full retirement age. So for me, January to May, I have an earnings limit of 65,160. Okay. And then once we get to June, when my birthday falls, we get the next um, uh, row across that says once you reach full retirement age, you have no more earnings limit. Okay. If you take your benefits early, the reduction is permanent. At that point, if you take your benefits early, you've got an earnings limit, but you work yourself out of it. But once you get to full retirement age, you can work and earn however much you want, and it will not affect your ability to collect benefits. Okay. There's other ramifications, but it won't keep you from collecting benefits. Okay. Um, so we talked a lot about us and our own benefits. Let's talk a little bit about other people. Um, the next slide tells you a bit about spouses. So a spouse is defined as somebody that we are currently married to. A spouse can receive a maximum of 50% of the worker's unreduced benefit. If spouses take benefits early, so when they are younger than their full retirement age, they can incur reduction because of their age, and they are automatically reduced to, when we're talking about living people, 50%. So with our fake person with a $2,000 benefit, we know that the most a spouse can collect from that record is $1,000, 50%. That's their full benefit amount, 50%. Um, if they took, if the spouse of that person took benefits at 62 when they first became eligible, so the ages are the same, became eligible for spouse's benefits, it would be further reduced for their age. So that's a big consideration to make, and it would be added, the spouse's benefit, it would be added to the spouse's own benefits if they are able to get a benefit. So if we have one person in a couple that did all the working and the other person didn't have any earnings out there in FICA, therefore that perhaps that the person who did all the working is sort of like maxing out all the financial benefits available. What you need to know is that receiving a spouse's benefit does not affect the worker's payment. So the worker gets what they get based on when they file the earnings limit, blah, blah, blah. They get what they get, but it doesn't hurt a spouse. So the next slide tells us a bit about divorced spouses. So spouse, person that's alive and we're married to right then. Divorced spouses are somebody we were married to, and the marriage has to have lasted at least 10 years from the date of marriage until the date of final divorce. that person to be getting divorced spouses benefits. So if you're the spouse or the divorced spouse, you have to be yourself unmarried at that point. You have to be at least 62, and your spouse has to be at least 62 and eligible for retirement benefits or disability. Um, Spouses, one thing I forgot to mention is they cannot collect benefits from their worker unless the worker is entitled to Social Security benefits, getting benefits. Divorced spouses have a extra little thing written into their rules called independently entitled divorce spouses. So sometimes divorced spouses have the ability to take Social Security benefits from their ex's record. Again, doesn't hurt what the ex gets, but it can be an independent entitlement such that the worker doesn't have to be getting benefits. So there's a little weird rule there. Um, we're going to go to the next chart and the next slide, sorry. And I just wanted to show you again, the, this, this is the same chart as before, but they put a different title on it because what they're referring to here is the reduction in benefits. So if you look across the last row, the bottom row, so if you're born in 1960 and after, your full retirement age is 67. You taking your own benefits early incurs a 30% reduction. And then they figured it based on $1,000. So the worker would get 30% less of their own benefit. If a spouse takes benefits at 62, they would incur a little bit of extra reduction. So it's kind of reduced on top of that because of sort of a standard rate of reduction of benefits. So, like I said, we don't want to put a value judgment. It's a fine choice for some people. Some people, it means more to them to have money in their pocket when it's time to get benefits than to wait. Some people, waiting is the name of the game. So there's a little bit about spouses benefits. The next slide is about something called deemed filing. So I tell you about all the spouses stuff, and now I'm going to wreck what I tell you because there have been some rule changes, and I for a long time have been thinking to myself that this is, it's just changed. It's not a fresh change. It's now 10 years old. The deemed filing provision was part of a big piece of legislation called the Bipartisan Budget Act that was taken into effect in January of 2016. And the rule says for deemed filing, if you were born on or after January 2nd, 1954, so think to yourself, was I born after that? Yes. And you are eligible for both retirement and spouses or divorce spouses benefits, you must apply for both benefits. This is called deemed filing. If you file for one benefit, you are deemed to file for the other one too, even if you're not eligible for it until later or perhaps never. So this is for people who were born after January 2nd, 1954. So therefore, simply said, if you're eligible for your own benefits, you have to take your own benefits first. And then if there's any benefits payable to you as a spouse or divorced spouse, that would go on top of your own benefit. So just some things to think about calculation of benefits. So we're going to take a small transition to the next slide, which is we talked about living people. Now we're going to talk about dead people. So we need to talk about survivors benefits because the survivors game is a little different than the spouses. So survivors benefits, and we're talking about survivors who were married to the person at the time of death. And then we also talk about divorced surviving spouses. So somebody who was married to you at least 10 years and the person is dead. So when you pass away, survivors can take benefits as early as 50 if they have a disability, otherwise 60 is the beginning age for possibilities for taking survivors benefits, not 62, but 60 for our survivors. Um, any age between 60 and full retirement age. If at age 60, the benefits, the chart that we had that said at 62, our benefits are reduced by 30%. So in this case, at age 60, so the earliest point of entitlement for a spouse or divorced spouse, 71.5% is the most that they can collect at age 60. So it is reduced, but it sometimes is a choice, a better choice for thinking about benefits in the future. So it's very far reduced. And then going forward, you know how your benefit goes up a little bit month to month to month as you wait. Same thing for our survivors. As you wait, because of the earnings limit, because that still applies, you're waiting for that time to go forward. And therefore, the reduction in benefits is less and less and less. Hopefully, that's making sense. So, at full retirement age, 100% is the amount that a survivor can collect. And sometimes survivors who are full retirement age and after can receive even higher benefits because of some certain calculations regarding number holders, the number holder or the worker's benefits. So sometimes it can be 100%, sometimes it can be more. But we help you figure that out. That's one of the purposes of a claim specialist is we're trained to help calculate all the benefits. Um, the next slide is also about survivors' benefits. One thing you might have heard of is a payment called lump sum death payment, which is a one-time payment of $255 that's payable to the surviving spouse or so surviving spouse married and living with them at the time of their death is the first person in line. Divorced spouses are never able to collect the 255. Adult parents aren't able to collect the 255. So it's generally the spouses is the first people in line, and then the next people in line would be children who meet requirements. So they have to be basically, the child has to be entitled to benefits from the parent's record. So adult children, if a parent passes away and you're not entitled on their social security record, then there's nobody to collect that benefit. And sometimes nobody collects 255, and that's okay. Just because if there's nobody that meets those requirements. So this is not applied for by the funeral home. It is now active online. You can apply for the 255. It's through our universal benefit application, and it's making our lives very much easier. More tools online is more better for us. That way you have that available to you. And then there's another type of benefits that I have encountered a grand total of twice in my entire career and the thousands of people I've interviewed. And that is parents' benefits. So this would be a person who is a parent to an adult, and the adult child has passed away, and the parent has to be financially dependent upon them for at least half of their financial support, which means that um, the parent themselves are not getting pretty much any other type of income, no SSI, no disability, no retirement benefits. So that's out there. It is a very narrow field of entitlement. If you think you are possibly eligible, definitely contact your Social Security office, but it's very, very few people that are eligible for that. The next slide just gives you two scenarios for how survivors benefit or how benefits can change over time. I think this is just like a good way to envision like who are the people who are collecting benefits and what situations are they in. So the first thing says you can take survivors benefits as early as 60, then switch to retirement on your own record as early as 62. Because remember, we're not eligible for retirement until 62. So you can go at early for retirement as early as 62 and as late as age 70, but only if the benefit rate is higher than your survivor benefits. So if your spouse is deceased and they're the ones that were making the big bucks, If you collect survivor's benefits and your own benefits never exceed what you can get as a survivor, we do not require you to take that lower benefit. We're only going to give you a benefit that is advantageous to you. So that is an example of survivors first. And then on the flip side, and this is sort of the no, these are sort of the people that we see a lot in the Social Security office, that you can take your retirement benefits as early as 62, like normal. And then if you have a spouse pass away, you can switch to survivors at a later date if the benefit rate is higher. Again, key. If you yourself did the working and you were bringing home the bacon and your spouse didn't have earnings quite measuring to what you received and the highest benefit available comes from your record, we're not going to make you switch to the lower record. Okay. So that's how that goes. So there are some people who come into the Social Security office on the daily and they say, I want to check out survivor's benefits. My spouse passed away. Sometimes we go, okay, cool. Let's take that $255 lump sum death benefit application. And oh, you're going to be eligible for $300 more. Excellent. Or sometimes it's here's the 255 that we're going to set you up for, and your earnings are better. So we're going to leave you where you're at. So now you know a little bit about those people kind of in the flesh. Those are the people that in situations that we deal with commonly. So the next slide is just sort of a drive-by introduction to benefits for children. So for children, if they have a parent that is disabled or retired or deceased, if the child is unmarried, younger than 18, or 18 or 19 and in high school, or if they are 18 or older and have a disability that started before age 22. Those are examples of benefits that children can receive from their parent who is deceased, disabled, or retired. So a little bit of information there for you. We're going to go kind of hopping through some other benefits here. The next slide is about SSDI. Okay, so this is also an entitlement program. And the SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. And you might see that the insurance word is out there a lot. And you might think to yourself, why are we talking about insurance? This is about benefits. But really, the reason why we refer to it as insurance is because you're paying in with your earnings, okay, with the taxes that you receive, or the taxes that you pay, your payroll tax or FICA tax. Those are feeding the trust funds. And then we calculate your benefit based on what earnings that you put in, that you worked for. I'm sorry. And the SSDI program, so it's an entitlement program for people who can either no longer work or they can't maintain a level of work called substantial gainful activity. The medical condition is expected to last for at least 12 months or result in someone's death. So we don't do short-term disability benefits. We don't do short or long-term. We don't do sort of like conditional benefits. You're either eligible or you're not for SSDI. So that's SSDI, also called disability. And for folks over the age of 30, generally to get SSDI or disability, you have to have about 5 years of substantial work within the last 10 years. So there are some people who don't qualify for SSDI because they've either never worked, haven't worked recently enough, or haven't worked enough recently. So that's one couple different considerations for eligibility. The next slide is about SSI. Just to separate, SSI in this case refers to supplemental security income, which is not an entitlement benefit. It's a needs-based benefit. And it is for folks who are any age if they have a disability. So if they're 65 and older, they don't have to have a disability. But folks of any age who are blind or disabled and have limited income and resources. So SSI, the set rate in 2026 is $994. So that's the highest amount that they can receive from SSI. We have some people who are, as back on like the first slide to show you, they get a little bit of SSI and a little bit of either disability or retirement. Some people will only receive SSI if they've never worked very little. Um, and it can kind of backfill for a low benefit amount. But SSI, needs-based, means tested, those are the folks who you might see that are also working with TDAP benefits. SSI, I sort of like to think of as to help be like a wraparound benefit. So people who get SSI generally can receive other types of um, benefits like Medicaid, food stamps, um, housing assistance. So that's how that happens. In Maryland, we are a state where if you're eligible for SSI, somebody is also eligible for Medicaid. Okay, so they have similar rules there. The next slide is just a chart to compare SSI and SSDI. So just keep in mind our entitlement funds versus needs-based funds. The SSI general treasury funds do not come from our trust funds, okay, for Social Security. Retirement survivors and disability trust funds pay benefits to people in those programs or their dependents. SSI is paid from a separate government fund. So SSI, we have to meet income and resource requirements, whereas for SSDI, we don't have needs and income-based requirements, but you have to have worked and paid in. And both across the board, both programs, you have to have a disability that's expected to last 12 or more months or result in your death. So that is, even across the board. SSI doesn't have any benefits to pay to spouses, divorced spouses, or children because it's needs-based, whereas SSDI, a lot of times there are benefits that are possibly payable to spouses, divorced spouses, or children. So there's kind of a quick comparison there for you. And we're going to go to the next slide just to give you a taste of how this happens. So people apply for SSDI or SSI. We take those applications, and how they go through the process is we send that application to an agency called DDS, Disability Determination Service. In Maryland, they're located in like Hunt Valley, Timonium area. And while at DDS, so we have that application, we send it to DDS, we say, okay, DDS, because I'm not a medical person, not a nurse, not a doctor, don't do that. That's not me. But they are. So they're doctors, they are nurses, they're specially trained to make those decisions. They get people's medical records. They might ask somebody to go to a consultative exam, which is free for the person to go, but it's not meant to treat or diagnose anything. It's basically them going to a doctor that Social Security deems to say, tell me what's up with this person. And they'll ask, maybe for some questionnaires to be filled out. And it can take anywhere from 30 days to 6 to 8 months to make a medical determination. And it's really important when I give this presentation for folks who might be eligible for disability to tell us if they move, change their address or contact information. So we send it to DDS. DDS does their thing. And then we get a decision back. And from there, if somebody is denied, they can launch into the appeals process. If not, then we help them continue to get ready to pay benefits. Appealing online is the best way to go. If people are asking for advice, I definitely encourage you to tell them to make sure they explore their appeal rights. And one way that they can find out further about their appeal rights is to read their letters. Read the letters that we send them, because if we tell you a decision, we have to tell you what comes next. You can either appeal, start over, whatever the case is. So reading letters is important. So the next slide tells you a little bit about our advanced designation program. So when somebody applies for retirement survivors disability or SSI, we're going to ask people to tell us up to 3 people who could serve as a representative payee for them. And they're telling us those people are ones that they trust, that they could help them to manage their affairs if they can't do it themselves with Social Security. So rep payees, and actually you can go to the next slide. A bit about rep payees, who they are, what they do. Representative payees are people who receive someone's benefits. They make sure that they manage their funds, make sure to pay for food, shelter, blah, 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 their basic needs. And rep payees are responsible for reporting on behalf of that person. So calling Social Security to tell us about a change, helping complete reviews and things like that. One nice thing about rep payees is you will have your own My Social Security page, but we also have like a payee portal. So if someone is a representative payee, they have their payee portal online that which is about Paul, the representative payee, and then Paul has his own page to tell him about Paul's benefits. So you can manage benefits and business online for you and you as payee if you need to. Okay, so now we're going to take a wild turn and talk about Medicare, which is helpful to know about so you know kind of what the lay of the land is.
Hey,
Medicare
Stephanie.
is, yes,
Sorry, I just wanted to just interject for a second. We have just about 8 minutes left on the call, so I just wanted to make sure that we give a little bit of time at the end for questions.
for sure. Okay. I'm going to kind of gloss over the important things. This is really, really, really brief about Medicare. So, you how people arrive at Medicare is generally at age 65. That's like the one we think about most, but people who have certain medical conditions like ALS or kidney disease can get medical Medicare, and also people who are getting disability after 2 years of eligibility, they can get Medicare. So the next slide is to break down the parts of Medicare. Medicare Part A and B are the parts that come from Medicare. Medicare is a separate agency from Social Security. We used to be one agency, Healthcare Finance Administration, and they sort of split ways as an agency, but their headquarters is literally up the driveway from Social Security's headquarters in Woodlawn. So we're cousins, but you know, we see each other like pretty much very frequently. A and B come from Medicare, and they're considered original Medicare or essential Medicare. Part A is hospitalization insurance. When you have your 40 quarters of credit, you get Medicare Part A for free. Medicare Part B is called medical insurance. If you have your 40 quarters, then you pay for Medicare. For Medicare now, currently in 2026, it's 202.90 for Medicare per month. For folks who are eligible for Medicaid, there is a program called QMB where it pays for their Medicare Part B. Part A for them is free. And there's also programs available where the state will pay for Part A and Part B. And then there are other parts of Medicare. The thing that makes them different is that they come from other health insurance companies, not from Medicare. A and B are Medicare on the little red, white, and blue card. All the other stuff comes from outside insurance companies. Part C, which partners with Part B, and then we have Part D, easy to remember. D is for drugs. So there's an agency in your counties that you may work with through social services called SHIP, State Health Insurance Assistance Program. Love every one of them that I've met because they are there to help people unpack Medicare and give advice about outside healthcare companies to get people the best medical plan setup that they can have. So I'm going to be a little bit selective and just wrap up about talking about Social Security in the future. So Social Security in the future, our actuaries tell us that we are solvent through 2034 is our date now. And that is if no changes happen to our funds and how we spend our money through our trust funds. We've come close to the edge before, and Congress has made necessary changes in order to preserve the trust funds. And the main point about that is if Congress doesn't act before 2034, the trust funds will still be able to pay benefits because we're not stopping paying FICA benefits, right? FICA taxes. So therefore, they may have to adjust the rate of payment for Social Security benefits, the percentage that we receive that goes all the way back to that one um, math page that says 90% of this, blah, blah, blah. So that's the reality about Social Security in the future. And for your own knowledge, one of the best things that Social Security recommends is you can make Social Security benefits in the future your foundation, but definitely take advantage of other income, savings, investments, pensions. And mymoney.gov is a great resource. It's a combined effort for several federal agencies to talk about income in the future. Okay, so I've talked at you enough. Um, Tell me what questions that you have.